Hello and welcome to Empowered Health. Vijay, we have an excellent show today.
That's right, Michelle. Today we are going to take a look at some of the health concerns that are connected to your eyes and to your sleep habits.
To kick things off, we're going to see the inspiring health journey of John Hogan.
So I knew a little bit, or a reasonable bit, about it. But I think it's the unknown of how fast it may progress. Am I going to be able to continue to work? And with respect to work, it's a little bit of a timing issue. Because if you work too long and then you can't do anything in your, we'll call it retirement, then it's a timing issue.
He's talking about the Parkinson's diagnosis he was given 6 years ago after waking up with a tremor. Parkinson's is a degenerative disease characterized by rigid muscles and uncontrollable movements. It usually strikes adults over 50, and there is no cure.
I've been pretty active throughout my life. Downhill skiing, cycling, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing at various points in time. Generally working out in the gym.
Along with medication, diet, and vitamins, John's continued commitment to fitness and his work with physiotherapist Becky Farley have all become essential components in allowing him to manage his Parkinson's.
I did research on Parkinson's and I developed an exercise program that addresses the problems with bradykinesia. So people have these small, slow movements, so we developed an exercise program to train people to take bigger movements with high effort.
Because exercise increases dopamine receptors, studies have shown time and time again that groups on a medication and exercise treatment plan do better than those who are on medication only.
One of the things that pulls it all together is people have to activate. They have to make this connection of how to turn on their muscles and coordinate their movements. So there's just so many ways you can do that. So we promote what we call activation no matter what you're doing. Tennis, jogging, sports, or just an exercise to help you learn how to step and catch your balance. So the foundation is we're targeting the problems, but you can do it about as many ways as you can think of.
Visit us online at vancouversun.com/empoweredhealth to share your personal health stories, ask questions of experts, and leave comments about the series or suggest topics for future episodes. And be sure to pick up a copy of the Vancouver Sun newspaper every Thursday for more empowered health stories and tips. We'll be right back.
Aluminum pots and pans are really common in the kitchen. But are there health concerns associated with using this kind of cookware?
Randy Shore is here to demystify aluminum. Take it away, Randy.
I grew up eating food cooked in aluminum pots. So when it was suggested by Canadian researchers in the 70s that Alzheimer's patients had an unusually large amount of aluminum in their brains, my parents got rid of their pots. They sent them with me when I went to university. What scientists found when they looked into the brains of deceased Alzheimer's patients was disturbing, because it wasn't clear at the time whether aluminum caused Alzheimer's or whether Alzheimer's caused aluminum uptake. Turns out it was the latter. Aluminum did not cause Alzheimer's. Around the same time, people with kidney disease undergoing dialysis were getting a weird form of dementia caused by the aluminum that collected in their bloodstreams during treatment that their kidneys could not remove. An entirely different form of dementia from Alzheimer's, it turns out. And in this case, it was caused by aluminum concentrations thousands of times higher than normal. When doctors started removing the naturally occurring aluminum from the water used for dialysis, people stopped getting the dementia. Between the Alzheimer's scare and the dialysis scare, people got it in their heads that aluminum is pretty dangerous stuff. Now, I never liked aluminum pots, but a lot of people used them for a very long time. Cast aluminum pots were popular for decades, and aluminum is still around in a lot of inexpensive cookware, not to mention consumer electronics, cars, cookie sheets, and airplanes. It's also commonly found in antacids, baking powders, aspirin coatings, antiperspirants, and in tap water all over the world. In fact, it makes up 8% of the Earth's crust, making it the most abundant metallic element on Earth. Now that's the same planet we've been living on quite happily pretty much forever. Aluminum is also found naturally in foods like spinach, potatoes, and even tea. Bottom line, you're probably getting far more aluminum in your diet from vegetables, food additives, and pharmaceuticals than you ever will from aluminum cookware. The World Health Organization pegged the average intake of aluminum from food at about 5 milligrams a day, about 25 times more than you get from using aluminum cookware. I don't know if that makes you feel better, but think about this. Your daily antacid dose can deliver about 1,000 times more aluminum than your veggies and drinking water ever could. And it's still considered a safe remedy, taken as directed. So use your cookware and worry about something else. I'm Randy Shore for Empowered Health.
Your back affects your daily health. Welcome to another installment of Your Spine, Your Health.
Because you have a spine, it's important to understand what chiropractic care means to your health. Your health always starts with a regulatory college. In this case, the College of Chiropractors of BC serves to ensure you receive care from a qualified chiropractic doctor for appropriate diagnosis and treatment, today and tomorrow. That's also why BC's chiropractors fund research and education. Today I want to discuss the topic of informed consent. So what happens? Well, in the morning you might wake up and you have some terrible pain in the lower back. It's shooting down your leg. And that neck pain that you've been experiencing for a week or two suddenly turns out to be a terrible headache with some shooting pain down your arm and tingling in the fingers. This is just one example of things that people will experience which prompts them to call their family chiropractor. This is where the paperwork process starts. You'll have to fill out the usual documents, and when you start your first visit with the chiropractor, you're going to go through a case history, an assessment, and eventually leading to a diagnosis. A diagnosis is a legal obligation that has to be provided during the course of your care. In this process, a very critical thing has to take place for your health and benefit. It's called informed consent. This is a process that engages you, and it's the chiropractor in this example and you, the patient, that are going to communicate about the circumstances of what you did, what pains you have. You're going to go through a range of tests that the chiropractic doctor is going to provide to determine, is this a spine and spine-related problem? Now, informed consent is a process. It's not simply signing a piece of paper, understanding I know the risks and you've told them to me. It's a process of discussion with the chiropractic doctor, any regulated health professional. In fact, we have to be able to explain to you what the treatment is going to be. We have to give you the diagnosis, as I mentioned. We'll also have to give you an assessment of the risks and, importantly, the benefits. And here's the magic, alternatives to what may be available. When patients see their family chiropractor, you will be explained the number of treatments that you're going to get, the expected outcomes of these. Because your care is important, that you need to know when the treatment will become effective. Doesn't mean you're going to know what day you're cured, that's not the point. But you need to know in the process of informed consent what that care is going to be, when you're going to expect to see some outcomes. There are many ways that people seek to treat the spine, and as practitioners, we have an obligation to let you know what are your choices for care, what are the results of those choices, and how that treatment is going to roll out. Until next time, I'm Dr. Don.
Today we are going to show you how to perform and progress the bent over row.
All right, Simona. So I'm going to get you to start with your feet about hip width apart. Awesome. Now I'm going to place a stick on your back, okay? And it's going to represent a neutral spine. That is perfect. You're going to draw in your core, contract it, and now bend at the hips slightly. Now as you exhale, you're going to pull your hands towards your belly button. Great job. This can be very effective for working the upper back muscles and correcting posture. Go ahead and stand up. Awesome. Okay, try that out and we'll see you next episode.
Coming up, on Empowered Health.
We know that the more sleep you get, the healthier your heart is. Just guaranteed. So, and it's also about the quality of sleep, not just the quantity of sleep.
Joining us now is Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor. Welcome.
Thank
Today
you.
we want to talk about sleep and its role in recovery from a health challenge.
Sure.
Can you recover from health challenges without appropriate amounts of sleep? And when you get sick, do you need more sleep?
Yes and yes. So the good news here is that sleep is healing. And we know that from many, many research studies. But one of the things we know most is that sleep affects your immune system almost directly. So for example, we know that if you're not sleeping well, the flu shot is not nearly as effective. We know that general vaccines are not as effective. And we also know that while you are ill, no matter what disease state, no matter what organ system, if you sleep, you will heal better. You will feel less pain and you'll feel better. But also the brain has to heal. The brain, when you're asleep, doesn't have nearly as much stimulation coming in, and so that extra energy that's oftentimes used for thinking and processing and doing things can actually be focused on the body.
Type 2 diabetes is a problem that is significant here in North America.
Sure.
Does sleep and type 2 diabetes, is there a link between the two?
There is a direct relationship. We now know that the more sleep deprived you are, the less able your body is to handle insulin, and your body becomes insulin resistant. That can be a real problem for anybody with type 2 diabetes. So one of the first things I talk to with all my diabetic patients is see if you can get 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep on a regular basis, and then monitor your sugar and insulin levels, and let's see if we can maybe back off on some of that medication and allow your body to do it for you.
What about other ailments? What if I'm dealing with Parkinson's disease, or I've
Sure.
got cardiovascular challenges?
So two different types of ideas here.
Yeah.
So when we talk about cardiovascular challenges, we know that the more sleep you get, the healthier your heart is. Just guaranteed. So, and it's also about the quality of sleep, not just the quantity of sleep. So a lot of people think, well, if I just get 7.5 hours, my heart's going to be better. You got to get 7.5 good hours of sleep. And so what does that mean? That means try not to have anything else that's influencing your sleep. For example, like a sleep disorder called sleep apnea. That's one of the things we know has a dramatic effect on your heart. Things like caffeine can have a dramatic effect on not only your ability to sleep, but also on heart health. So talking with your physician about what can I do from a sleep perspective to help my heart is absolutely a great idea.
Thank you very much. This is important information when it comes to our well-being and especially recovery from illness when it comes to sleep. When we have you back on another show, we'd like to talk about sleep and diet and weight control.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. When an optometrist looks deep inside your eyes, what they're looking at is the health of those fluid-filled spheres that are connected to your brain. But did you know your eyes are windows to so much more?
So actually the eye can be a really interesting conduit in terms of your overall general health.
Yes, it is.
If we take a bigger, broader picture and we look at diseases such as if you're a diabetic, for example, a lot of blood leaks tend to occur on the retina.
That's because diabetes thickens your blood. The higher your A1Cs, the thicker your blood, and thick blood puts tremendous pressure on arteries and blood vessels.
The blood vessel wall actually breaks down, and you can get leakages onto the surface of the retina. So if you imagine if you have holes in your holes while you're watering your garden, somebody comes along and cranks the pressure up. That's the combination of high blood pressure and diabetes.
In other words, those tiny little blood vessels in your eyes rupture and they start to leak.
You can actually have a lot of bleeds on the retina, which can cause problems with your vision. Actually, diabetic retinopathy is the #1 cause of vision loss in the working age population.
When it comes to diabetes, constant monitoring is extremely important, not just for your eyes, but for every vital organ in your body. Far too frequently, undiagnosed complications from diabetes do not present anywhere other than your eyes. When the optometrist peers inside your eyes, they're also looking for signs of glaucoma, another debilitating health concern.
How we develop glaucoma, which is when the optic nerve, which is a nerve that sends a signal to the brain, how that nerve degenerates in certain folks and not in others.
Interesting new evidence is pointing towards blood pressure, low blood pressure, something you almost never hear about. Dr. Quaid, working with a research team at the University of Waterloo, has identified that low blood pressure plays a significant role in the onset of glaucoma. The team has gone on to examine the relationship between low blood pressure, glaucoma, dementia, and Alzheimer's.
There is some interesting evidence out there to show that there could be a correlation between things like Alzheimer's and dementia and glaucoma, although that's still being debated.
In other words, is glaucoma an early warning sign for dementia and/or Alzheimer's? That research continues. However, there is an abundance of evidence that suggests regular eye examinations play a role in the maintenance of your health. After the break.
This was the recipe that converted me into a true lentil eater.
This cooking and nutrition portion brought to you by Save On Foods.
Andrea Potter from Rooted Nutrition is here. She is a chef and a holistic nutritionist and is going to share a recipe idea with us involving lentils. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Great, thanks for having me.
So lentils are gaining a lot of popularity and you've got some great recipe ideas today. What do we have here?
So when I grew up, I actually didn't really eat lentils. So they're fairly new to me.
Okay.
And I wasn't that convinced the first couple times I tried them. I found them to be mushy. I didn't really like the flavor. And this was the recipe that converted me into a true lentil eater. So I'm going to introduce you to the ingredients.
Perfect.
They're pretty basic, just onion, celery, and I have some mixed peppers here.
Okay.
And we're going to very lightly cook these just to take the raw flavor out of them a little bit. Then we're going to add a little bit of raw carrot to the mixture for crunch, for color, and lots of citrus. So we're going to use the zest of grapefruit and orange,
lime and lemon,
and use the juice for the dressing.
Okay.
So you know how lentils soak up a lot of liquid?
Absolutely, yes.
And when we make it with warm lentils, it soaks up the juice from the citrus, and so we get citrusy all the way through. So if you want to get started and grate a couple of carrots for me.
Grate them.
And I'm going to get started zesting.
Okay.
And we can just put everything into this bowl. This is a lot of citrus. Great. So my lentils are done. I'm just going to start heating up a pot gently over here.
Okay.
And can I get you to chop each of these in half? And I'll juice them.
All right.
And in my pot, I'm just going to add a little oil. This is a very, very gentle heat, so olive oil is okay.
Right.
This is great for the winter and early spring when people start to get colds a lot.
True. Vitamin C.
Lots of vitamin C.
Get it all in, yes. So what we put in there, I missed that.
So this is onions and celery and mixed peppers.
Okay.
And chop everything small. If your lentils are small, you want your vegetables to be pretty and small as well.
Just so that everything looks kind of consistent.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Great, so I'm just going to juice these right into the bowl. Fresh citrus is so important in this recipe. I wouldn't make it with the boxed citrus or something like that. You can taste the difference. So unlike many dressings where the oil is the base, this is actually citrus juice as the base and then just a little bit of oil for shine.
Okay.
And could you chop about half of a head of parsley for me? I'm going to strain out the lentils.
Okay. And you could substitute parsley with something else, like cilantro?
Yeah, cilantro is really, really nice in this salad.
Yeah.
So check out these lentils. Lentils can go in as soon as, like these are still warm, and as soon as the juice has been taken from the citrus. So warm lentils are going in that juice and they're sucking up the flavor. Okay, great. So you can see that the onions are just starting to cook.
Right.
At this point, we can put this in.
It's pretty much like sweating the veggies, right? And that's exactly what we've done.
Yeah.
Because you want them a bit to the tooth as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's nothing in the salad which is going to give it the crunch.
Right.
Yeah, besides the carrot.
Just a little bit of the carrots.
Wow.
Pretty good.
You know, when all of this comes together and all these colors, it makes the dish look so tempting.
Bon appetit.
Andrea, this tastes really good. The veggies, the lentils, all the citrusy flavors, all come together very nicely.
It'll make a lentil lover of anybody.
Absolutely, yes. Well, you can find out more about this recipe in today's Vancouver Sun or log on to vancouversun.com/empoweredhealth. Andrea, thanks for being on the show and thank you for this amazing recipe.
Thanks.
Today we have registered dietitian Melissa LeBlanc on the show to tell us how we can include more fruits and vegetables in our daily diet. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vijay.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact is, most of us are not getting enough fruits and veggies in our daily diet.
That's absolutely right. And in fact, that's been a consistent finding over the years.
And how can we fix that?
Well, just a few simple things that you can do. So try starting a meal with a salad, or you can even take a salad and turn that into a meal.
Turn a salad into a meal?
Right.
Okay, I'll do that, but my concern is I'm gonna go hungry.
Well, you just have to add a couple of components, so protein and carbohydrates, and that turns it into a power salad.
Power salad, I like that name. But can you give us a few examples of the proteins and the carbs that can be added to the salad?
Sure, so try adding some grilled chicken, fish, or shrimp. Or if you're vegetarian, try adding some grilled tofu, seeds, or even cooked lentils.
So that's protein. What about the carbs?
So carbohydrates could be cooked noodles, or some cooked grains like barley, quinoa, or wheat berries.
Okay, I get it. So you mix all these ingredients and you top it up with a creamy dressing. That completes your salad, right?
Well, hang on. The dressing is where you can add a lot of calories as well as unhealthy fats. So keep it light and healthy by adding a vinaigrette that's made with olive oil and the vinegar of your choice, or a squeeze of lemon juice. That keeps it light.
And you get the flavor and you avoid the calories, right?
That's correct.
Well, Melissa, this power salad sounds like a great lunch option.
It is. You can pack it and take it to work with you.
Well, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for this. We'll see you next time.
You're welcome.
That's it for another episode of Empowered Health. Thanks for joining us. Vijay, I'm definitely going to make sure I get a good night's sleep tonight.
That's a great idea, Michelle. For more information on any of the stories you saw on today's show, check out today's Vancouver Sun newspaper or visit the Vancouver Sun website.
See you soon.